Aces Wild, Dust and Lead, Episode 1.
Somewhere in the Old West Badlands.
A flood of beaded sweat traced the outline of Chase McCoy's cheeks. Clenching his jaw tightly, he darted behind a boulder while trying to rapidly chamber his rifle. In the shadows, there was a persistent barking. Working the lever action of his trusty .44 was usually such a routine act, but his mind raced with the flood of observations he just survived a split second before. Another bullet ricocheted off the rock just over his left shoulder. Chase spun about, firing blindly at the figure crouched near the base of a tree a few hundred feet away. Shrapnel of lead and bark flew in a multitude of directions. The man cowered in temporary retreat. Another shot rang out. Chase saw the smoke as the bullet struck his granite shield. Feeling emboldened, a dark-haired man swung himself from behind the pines immediately into Chase's line of fire. The hit thrust the man backward before he fell into a heap. As he did, the man's companion peeped out from behind another tall pine. He fired a series of bullets toward Chase, quickly discharging his weapon. Drawing a bead upon the man, Chase pulled the trigger back, only to discover he was out of ammunition.
I can't shoot, can't load my rifle,
Chase muttered to himself. Time on the trail had definitely taken its toll on his typically professional manner. Or maybe it was the relentless noise from the shadows. But now was not the time for reflection. Adding to the confusion came a wailing war cry. A towering native man started racing across the clearing toward him. Chase's steely blue eyes glanced back to his nearby horse, aware his bullets were in his saddlebag. There was no time to move for them as the giant native charged, yelping crazily. Instantly, Chase scurried out from behind the barrier of the boulder, dropping his now useless rifle to the ground and raising his fists in defense. The native known as Red Sky was quickly gaining ground, closing the gap between them. Chase did not know how Red Sky got his name. He assumed it had something to do with him being a bloody savage. So tall that he walked amongst the clouds. The Comanche wore a red headdress and buckskin pants. His body and face were adorned with war paint. Kicked out of his tribe for consumption, he now traveled with a small band of outlaws. Chase had been tracking them for some time. Now, Red Sky was the only one left, and he wanted to bring him in alive. He rose just in time to plant his fist firmly in Red Sky's gut. The Indian instantly clutched his stomach with one arm while throwing the other arm up in self-defense. Frantically, Red Sky kicked out, knocking Chase down to the ground. He quickly leaped atop him and grabbed Chase by the neck, raising his head. It took a few moments for Chase to catch up after the rush attack. He tried breaking free as Red Sky smashed his skull into the ground below. In a brief moment of lucid thought, Chase grabbed a handful of dirt and flung it into Red Sky's fiery eyes. He recoiled, giving Chase his much-needed escape route. Standing tall again, he battered Red Sky back, swinging first his left fist, then his right. But Red Sky recovered quickly and blocked Chase's advance. Returning the gut punch, it was now Chase's turn to double over. Red Sky continued to strike. Chase managed to unsheath a blade from his waist. He nearly fumbled with his knife, but still managed a successful strike across Red Sky's bare chest. Red Sky grasped the knife by its edge, immune to the pain of the blade sinking into his skin. Chase, in awe, relinquished his grip and scurried backward, tripping as he fled. Red Sky snickered, believing he had the bounty hunter right where he wanted him. Gray Blue meeting Fiery Amber, the two men stared each other down for a fleeting moment. The Indian advanced on the cowboy, ready to strike. Just as Chase considered his impending doom, there it was. Oh, what a sound. The patter of paws kicking up ground. Then, the familiar bark, the terrifying growl. Honey was loose, broken free of the snare previously set by Red Sky, moving in perfect form to her master's aid. Stopping in total bewilderment, Red Sky's smirk vanished. He knew things had just turned for the worse. Honey's reputation was only preceded by his own run-in with the canine over the past few months. He turned to spy after the ruckus. There she was, mangy and dirty from the trail, but no less significant. The chestnut Staffordshire leapt toward Red Sky, baring her teeth. Honey caught his arm. Red Sky flung her to the ground. Honey, in turn, brought him down to her level, with her jaw locked on his groin. Red Sky picked up Chase's knife, threatening to cut at her. In an instant, another blade was thrust against his pulsing neck vein. Only it was his own tomahawk meeting his jugular. Chase was on his feet, having relieved Red Sky of his piece during the confusion. Red Sky promptly ceased all movement.
Hold it right there.
Without hesitation, Red Sky tossed the knife to the ground. Honey snarled.
Don't go hurting my dog.
Chase growled into Red Sky's ear as the Indian dropped to his knees. Removing the rope from his belt, Chase began tying the man's hands together behind his back. He peered over to the pup and half smiled. She paced up to him, nudging his awaiting palm.
That's a good girl,
he assured her while rubbing her head. After Chase tied Red Sky's hands, Honey sat on the ground, keeping a firm eye on him. Chase drew him up from the dirt with the rope and escorted him back to his mare. Attaching Red Sky to his saddle horn, he sighed.
From here, you walk.
Nessie was a stunning specimen. She was fast, even for a quarter horse, chocolate brown with a white snout. Chase and Nessie shared a special bond. They had been together for several years, brought together during the war, and then they brought in many bounties. Now, it was time for one more. For Chase McCoy, the ride home was a difficult one. While he remained stoic and calm on the outside, within himself he felt a tearing in two ways. Part of him only wanted to revel in the comforts of home. Another part remained compelled to stay on the trail. It wasn't that he didn't enjoy home. Rather, he grew accustomed to his time away. The first time Chase left home, for any length of time, was to fight with the Union troops. He spent roughly 2 years raging through battlefields, watching good men and boys perish. What held him together was the hope the country could stand united once again, and slavery would reach its end. At the same time, his eyes were open to corruption and greed witnessed during the politics of war. His skills were recognized quickly, as he showed quite adept with a rifle. Most of his final year was spent on a hilltop away from his fellow men, protecting and watching for any rebel who may cross the line or prepare an ambush. Returning home after Lee's surrender, he found his parents deceased. Upon entering the family home, he found no trace of them. Instead, it was as though time froze upon their departure, everything in place as they left it. Stepping out back, he noticed 2 makeshift crosses upon the hilltop. He later learned cholera took them away, and neighboring townsfolk prepared their final resting place. The land and house were his, but he found no rest there. When trying to concede to slumber, the harrowing images of men being swallowed into a sea of blood haunted him. He tried to settle down and work the land, but ultimately, the trials of everyday life appeared so mundane compared to the tenseness of war. In only a month or 2, his parents' home sold, and Chase once again mounted his mare for the horizon. A call from the government to assist in the native problems enticed him for a spell. Once again, Chase was promoted to using his sharpshooter skills. This time, though, his hopes and dreams of a united country rapidly faded as he watched the government seize the land and lives of all those who stood in their way. Chase grew to understand the men that were looked down upon by the soldiers. He watched the annihilation of their lifestyle, a lifestyle that he greatly admired. If it had not been for one of the so-called primitives, Chase may not have survived a spell out in the blistering sun when he was separated from his comrades. Having now developed a trust with the local natives, Chase traded goods in return for lessons in tracking and hunting. Over time, the harshness of these new government contracts took a heavy toll on Chase's conscience. He soon withdrew from government work towards a more independent and lucrative lifestyle. Sometimes the bounty was a soldier gone rogue, and other times it was a native hell-bent on revenge against the white man. For Chase, it didn't matter. What mattered was the distraction from mundane life and the ability to decide one's actions, that and the pay. The government stipend kept a soldier's belly somewhat full, and that was about it. For Chase, the ups and downs of a bounty hunter's life were much more exciting. A stint of hunger pains in the damp cold, huddled with honey, followed by a bath, feast, warm bed, and new clothes. Those were the things that kept a cowboy's blood pumping. At one point, Chase did find Durnville, a town he was willing to call home. Using the money from selling his parents' estate, there he sought to retreat from the calamity he called life. Yet he still could not stay put day after day. His sharpshooting skills already gained him a reputation. Lawmen searched for him, seeking his continued help with finding outlaws. Outlaws searched for him as well, seeking fame and taking on the great sharpshooter, Chase McCoy. It was when Chase realized he had spent most of the earnings from the sale of his family home, he took his first job as a bounty hunter. Surprised by his own ability to track the man so quickly, offers were made for higher and higher rewards. Before Chase knew it, he was fully engulfed in the bounty hunter lifestyle. The jobs mostly kept him away from his property on the outskirts of town, but it was a nice place to rest and call home when he wasn't on the move. Nessie neighed as Durnville came into view after months in the pursuit of red sky. Chase sighed, famished and fatigued. His sandy brown hair dripped beneath the brim of his hat as he wiped his brow. He needed that bath, change of clothes, and a warm meal, especially before he went to find Abby. Abby was a city girl and she looked the part, fond of fancy dresses and fancier hats. He'd most likely find the blonde, long-haired lass working her shift at the tailor's. Chase met Abby shortly after one of his first bounties. Her parents had also passed, after which she tended to her little brother. When the boy passed away from influenza, it almost broke her. Now she bid her time helping Mr. Watts around the shop. Chase first noticed her while attiring himself with funds from the bounty. Abby possessed a talent for making a man look his best. They became accustomed to each other and soon took to long walks and talks. Chase helped her with maintaining her home. He found himself drawn to her and enjoyed the way she made him laugh. A good departure from the memories of war. Chase hoped he helped her with her demons as well. It seemed their time together stood separate from the woes of life that had afflicted them both. It would be nice to return to her and find some comfort in the familiar. However, upon this return, this town was not the same place he left. Immediately, he noticed the once well-maintained, freshly painted signs looked worn and faded. The hub-hub activity of the promising streets appeared eerily empty in comparison to his memories. There were no families walking side by side. Instead, men in tattered clothes covered in coal dust trudged along the roads while more rugged men watched street corners. Then, there were the women, or the lack thereof. When Chase had last seen the town, the streets were teeming with women in long prairie dresses, running around, chatting and shopping to their heart's content. Now, on the boardwalks, stood scantily clad whores. Whores that were ogling Chase with eccentric leers and smiles.
You looking for a good time, mister? Come on over here, handsome.
Chase returned a glance and a nod, but just continued on his way, sighing in disbelief. Red Sky, however, was grinning enthusiastically while staggering behind him, still hitched to his saddle horn.
You like that, do you? Won't be any of that where you're going.
Just then, a wagon flew into his path, horses neighing and bucking. They almost slammed into Chase. Luckily, reflexes steered him away from the near collision.
And a good day to you.
Irritated, he stroked Nessie's mane, soothing her startled nerves.
Easy, girl. Easy. What's come over this place?
As he approached the building bearing a sign that read, Sheriff, Chase watched as 3 men all in red and black stood up from the bench out front. They sauntered up to the hitching rail and leaned casually against its edge, and onto the steps leading out to the street. Seemingly menacing, they stared hard at Chase, their beady eyes following him as he passed. Turning, they allowed the sight of their holstered six-shooters to gleam in the afternoon sun. Chase nodded his head, unsure at what their haphazard stances were about. Walking his horse to the hitching post, Chase dismounted, looping the reins around it. He then peered over the top of his saddle to meet the eyes of the still observing men.
Howdy.
The men did not budge. They continued to watch his every move.
Or not.
Chase added as he opened the door into the sheriff's. Tugging roughly on the rope, Chase urged the tall Indian inside the small office. Masters was a tall, pot-bellied man, more suited for desk work now than in his youth. Smirking under his salt and pepper mustache, The sheriff jumped to his feet as the wooden door creaked open. Chase led the man past Masters to an awaiting cell and slid the loud iron bars shut.
Well, we all kinda wondered about you, McCoy. But I knew you'd turn up soon enough.
Yeah, gave me a little bit of a run, this one.
What's it been? About 7 months?
Chase sighed heavily, realizing it had indeed been quite that long. He shot a glance at the sheriff and almost had to laugh as he replied.
Something like that. That's why I can't wait to clean up. Rest a bit.
Each of the bills was crisp, almost as if freshly printed. The notes exchanged hands, and Chase pocketed them into his satchel, relishing the thought he was $100 richer. However, he also noted it seemed a bit short as he watched Masters tear down the worn wanted poster for Red Sky and crinkle it into a tight little ball. Oh, well, it wasn't too great a cut from what he anticipated. Still, he peered around and once more noticed how quiet the streets seemed. Even the sheriff's office appeared a bit worn down and in need of some sprucing up.
If you're needing a bathhouse, Johnson's moved on, and Mr. Covington's raised the price a little.
On a bath?
$2 is all that's there now. Just the purely deluxe bath.
Starting toward the door, Chase stopped, caught by the next words out of the sheriff's mouth.
And if you're looking for Abby, she may be with Covington herself.
His steely eyes glanced up beneath his hat toward Masters. For a fleeting moment, Chase felt a swift pang of irritation and almost jealousy.
And what on earth would Abby be doing at Covington's?
Recoiling a little, Masters scurried a bit behind his desk, uneasy suddenly. Of course, none of this behavior missed Chase's scrutiny.
Oh, nothing. Nothing, I'm sure. She works there now.
At a saloon?
Chase asked, completely incredulous about the news, and shooting his eyes wide with surprise.
A lot has changed, McCoy.
So I'm seeing.
Chase grunted as he made his way back onto the dismal street. Glancing around, he noticed the men still eyeing him from his ride into town. There was no hint of a smile or a desire for conversation, and by this point, Chase didn't feel much like chatting himself. The men put him on edge. He knew approaching them would no doubt end in a fistfight or worse. So, Chase set his sights on other goals. Stroking his beard and brushing off the sweat from his neck, he felt the need for a shave and a trim. As he peered around at the various storefronts, his sun-chapped hand bumped along his equally sun-damaged trousers, dirt flung from the fabric. A change into clean clothes would also be a warm welcome following his stint in the wilderness.
A change of clothes and a shave indeed, especially if Abby's involved.